Right then. Oh, so thank you all so much for joining us here today on the 2nd of April. Yes, it is the 2nd of April. Um, we are a week late. I was very sick last week. So sick I could not even read. That's how sick I was. And for those of you who know me, I read a lot. So for something to wipe me out that badly, it had to have been quite severe. And I've realized you actually need to practice at being sick because the recovery is not as easy as some people like to make out it is. So yes, I'm here. I'm well enough to do this. So today we're going to be looking at royalties, ethics, and using anthologies for good. I'm going to make the distinction between philanthropy and charity. We're going to be looking at how we lay everything out. And so, without further ado, as they say, let's crack on and finish this anthology series. Right, so step one, obviously, is get all the basics in place. Now, we've touched on quite a bit over the last 3 weeks, well, 4 weeks, but 3 weeks. And so I'm just going to recap on a few bits and pieces, like the legal and the contractual basics that you need to actually have in. But today we're going to be focusing on obviously the payments and the monetary aspect of it. And why, as I've put here, clarity up front prevents resentment later, because there will be some and those of us who have been in agreements, whether it's, property investment, whether it's businesses, or whether it's, going halves on dinner, if people are not upfront straight away, or people are not asking smart questions about what the dynamics are, then it can actually create resentment, actually break down the relationships that you have, both personal and professional. So it's about getting clarity up front. Who is paying for dinner? So, yes, if a man invites a woman out for dinner, he's paying every time, in my world anyway. So, and then again, choosing philanthropy over charity. Do we want to empower people or elevate people for the long term, or are we just offering a quick fix or something so that there's dependence, as in through the charity, or the independence and interdependence of philanthropy? And then looking at how philanthropic and anthologies increase your reach. But you have to be really quite strategic with this because sometimes, well, I'll get onto it, but again, sometimes when you're looking at the long-term gain, some of those who work with you on the anthology, they're only really in it to get their name in a book or to get their story out there. They're not really in it to help you with the long-term impact. So that's something that we'll touch on. And then looking at the long-term brand trust and keeping the promise. So, for example, with DBI, we have a very strong brand. People know what to expect from us. We've chosen the colors very strategically. We've chosen the fonts, the imagery, but the look and the feel of everything. We've looked at it on a psychological basis and how what we're doing and what we're creating actually lands with other people. But that is also the same for the bigger brands that you're working with, other people that are taking part, but also the sponsorship or the collaboration for these long-term organizations and the social impact that you might be wanting to create. So we'll be looking at that. And then when you do this, you actually then start to realize who's serious and who's not, who's doing it for vanity or for their own selfish reasons. And selfish reasons are selfish reasons, but they can be good. Um, and it really is about making sure that you've got that clarity up front at the beginning of it, of the project. So if you know that there is a particular person in the group that's only doing it for their vanity metrics, you know where you stand with them. You know that you've just got that. And you can appeal to that side of them. You really can. And then looking at the royalties, the agreements, all the transparency, this is how much we expect to make. This is how much we want to make. This is a realistic amount. But also, if you're going to be sharing royalties with your co-authors or keeping them to yourself or donating them to a charity or to a long-term philanthropic cause. And also looking at the impact that you each want to make, as well as what the impact is that you want to create collectively and with the partners. So that's what we're going to cover today. So without further ado, here we go. So the legal and the contractual basics. Now, we all know that it's okay. You're all agreeing to come on board with this project. You'll have the names, the addresses, Model release forms, make sure that they are in there. Sometimes called release forms, some called there are so many different names for these. Model release forms are tend to be more photographic, but because when we do an anthology here at DBI, we give each of the authors their profile page. So we're going to be looking at, a photograph of them. There'll be photographs of them in the marketing material. So we're going to need a model release form. We're also going to need a copyright release form. We just really call them release forms. And again, because it is about what they're sharing, all the materials that are created, anything that they create, they then actually they belong to the group. This is stipulated in the anthology. So, for example, we keep the copyright of the wording in the book. We have all of the assets shared with us. We keep the copyright of all the social media graphics. But say, for example, when we did the Potent Power of Menopause book, Kate, who was part of the book, she created interviews that went live on her YouTube channel. They belonged to her, but she shared them with the group and they were for the whole group to use. That is clearly stipulated in all of our contracts. So again, it's making sure all of these things are actually specified within the contract and who owns the right. So because once someone has shared their story with you, and they've signed a release form or they've signed the contract, I would always embed the release form in the contract. So then it's less paperwork. But then once it's in there and they've signed that document, they no longer have access. Now, if you choose to share their chapter with them so that they can then use it as a marketing tool, then that is entirely up to you. And you can put that in the contract. It's always best to. As we've gone through and we've done multiple anthologies, we've had requests from some of our co-authors. We've gone, oh, we didn't cover that in the contract. So then we've put it as a sub clause in, and we've made it as a clause in future contracts. So again, be open to growing and developing your contracts because, there are some things that people come up with some brilliant ideas. You're like, how did we not think of that? How is that not covered in our contract? And then you just add it. So we've got some comprehensive contracts. And if you work with us on your anthology or any of your books, then we will also make sure that all of your contracts are hunky-dory. I don't know why. Why do we say hunky-dory? That's something I might have to look into, but not right now. Okay, so again, one of the things that we also do at DBI Publishing is when we're working with, whether it's a solo author or an anthologies, especially with anthologies, we have a proposal for the publishing. Now, this can change, and you have to put in the contract that there will be possible delays. Now, if you have been chasing up, say, the story or the bios or graphics or elements of it, and the author keeps delaying, then we have late fees that or the co-authors are responsible for paying, especially if it impacts the publishing deadlines. There are some delays that you can go, okay, no worries, we can hold off on that. So for example, last year when we did the Owning Our Ovaries anthology, we had deaths in the family. We had some of the co-authors, they had a lot of trauma come up. We had a court case, so there were certain things, and it came down to us as a group to say, let's all get together. Let's hold space for each other. Let's understand where we're coming from. Are we willing to delay the project? And it became a yes every single time, because what the anthology brought up for the co-authors and what people were dealing with in their private lives, that actually mattered. And it was about creating that safe space for people and making sure that they felt respected and that they could actually traverse through what they were going through. There will be other things where, oh, sorry, I forgot. Oh, sorry, I was busy, or I took on a different project, and there were the delays. So they've not respected everybody else in the group. So there could be late fees applied. So make sure that you make that clear. Don't do a Ryanair and just delay things. I've actually said that the one thing you can guarantee with Ryanair is that you will be delayed. And they have retweeted it, which is great. So again, if the people are being delayed with input materials, make sure that they know that there are late fees. Don't use them as a way of making extra money, like some people I've heard of. I'm like, oh my God, you were like, what? Again, be respectful, be understanding, be considerate. and realize that the project is probably a bit bigger than, you know, a 2 hour delay. Um, yeah, I've heard some things. But make sure that, again, all the payment models are laid out. So, for example, if you are donating all royalties, now, one of the things that we do with anthologies at DBI is, because we can never guarantee whose marketing activities are creating the sales online. So we say all online sales, all the royalties from online sales, they go to charity. If the individual authors choose to buy author copies and then sell them, then they get to either keep that money or they get to donate it to an alternative charity of their choice. Because, like I said, you cannot guarantee, just because X person is doing lots of marketing, they may not be resulting in sales, but they're doing lots and lots and lots of effort. But you cannot guarantee, when you've sold a book online, say, for example, on Amazon or from Barnes and Noble or Waterstones, you can't guarantee where that sale has come from. So instead of just saying, well, we're going to share the profits, because you don't really get a lot of royalties per book. So to share that between a number of people, you're going to get peanuts. So it's best to donate it to charity or to help fund a philanthropic project. And then again, if people want to make money from the book, or they want to donate to a different charity, then they can buy author copies, make money, and then donate if they wish to. So again, make sure that that is all laid out really clearly. Some people I know that have created anthologies, they've gone, no, this was my intellectual property, this was my idea, I came up with this, I just want to take the money back, I want to make money from this book, and they've kept the money for themselves. That's fine if everybody is in agreement, but just make sure that everybody is clear and it is put in the contracts as the payment models that you will be using. And make sure that each and every single author that is actually part of it understands this prior to signing the contract. This has to be one of the opening conversations that you have with people. So make sure it is. Because also, one of the things that you'll notice is that it might be that you've got one person who's really, really good at marketing, another person who's really great at the email marketing or the social media marketing. You might have another one that's great at the illustrations. You might have another one that's, you know, doing massive conferences and don't really need to do social media because they're selling copies of the book at the back of the room. Find out what each of your skill sets are and which responsibilities you're going to be taking on. So, for example, Clarissa interviewed us for the Potent Power of Menopause, as did Kate. Kate's interviews have gone really quite viral on YouTube. If you type in Potent Power of Menopause, you'll get to see those. I say they've gone viral, I find them, but you know, I don't know. We've used them so many times. They haven't got millions and millions of hits. That's what I'm talking about. But again, making sure that you're all playing to each other's strengths. So, and you're building on those. And if somebody has to pay out for their skill set or their overheads connected to their service, how is that laid out within the contracts? Are they going to be off? So, for example, if people are paying to be part of your anthology, are their overheads offset against the fee? So it might be that other people are paying a fee. They don't really have a lot of skills. They don't have much overheads to do the marketing. They're going to be doing them anyway. So there's not any additional cost. So they're paying the full price. But other people, they are offsetting their overheads, and they will invoice you back and forth so that you'll know what the invoice is offset against. Make sure your accounting is accurate. Make sure that you've got really, really great terms in there, and that all your invoicings are matching up together, because somebody who doesn't really love accounting, I like selling and I like making profit, but I really don't like accounting very much. Not my strong suit. So again, making sure that the person who does all of your accounting actually is aware of what is happening so that they can actually handle that for you. You might also like to consider how calling off periods, and if they leave, what happens to the payment that they've put in? Have they had coaching? Have you done lots of editing? Because if they choose to leave and you've done lots of coaching and lots of editing, or you've had to pay out for things, it's not really fair that you've put all of that time and effort into them for them to pull out and then want their deposit back or their payment back. So again, making sure that you have got those exit clauses in there, those cooling off periods. If they've had to pay a non-refundable deposit to be part of it, then they've agreed to a non-refundable deposit. Again, what step on their journey, if they pull out, do you keep their money, and can you gift it to somebody else who's got a really brilliant story but can't afford, but because that person has already paid, can you give somebody else a place in the contract and make sure that their contract reflects it? Whether you are open with everybody else in the group or whether you keep that between you, because again, some people are quite sensitive about their finances. So you don't really want to be making them feel like ashamed or embarrassed that they've not been able to afford it. So again, making sure that the sensitivity is in there because you are working on a project together and these things matter. They really, really do. And I know I might be teaching some of you how to suck eggs, but I really do find it really beneficial to make sure all of those things are clarified. Step 3. Now, as I said at the very beginning, what if we're open and we're honest with people from the get-go, it really does prevent a lot of hassles coming up and a lot of problems. Now, it won't always, because there will be some people who throw a tantrum or that they'll get triggered and they'll just go, oh, I really don't want to be part of this anymore. And then, they go out in a blaze of glory and then they shame you or they bitch about you or they try and damage the book or whatever way. But if you are clear from the get-go and you've got everything in contracts, then no one can say anything because it's like, well, you knew that this was happening. So, for example, let's just use one of my books. We all knew that I curated the book, that my name would be on the front cover, that I would be the one leading the book and doing the coaching and the publishing, and choosing the order in which the chapters occurred in the book because, again, of my training with handling trauma and the healing process that I've been through with a lot of my clients and understanding how readers might be triggered by it. And again, I get to choose what goes in the book and what doesn't. Is this information going to be accepted? No. If you are going to be providing this kind of information, I'm going to want evidence. There was a book I worked on where I wanted evidence from an individual. She didn't like the fact that I wanted evidence to prove it. She thought I was saying that I didn't believe her. And I'm like, no, this is actually protecting defamation or slander, and we need to protect everybody in the group as well as the editor and the publishing company. We need to be able to protect all of that. So again, if you are being clear from the get-go and someone then springs something on you about their story, or you're reading it and you're going, well, hang on a second, this is not the story you were going to be submitting, therefore I don't want it, or you're going to need to change it, they need to be equally as upfront and clear and honest with you at the very beginning as much as you do on how things are going to work. This is one of the reasons why when I work on an anthology with people, we get together for regular meetings. It's like, okay, this is where we're at. This is what is happening. How does everybody feel? Does anybody need a bit more time? We all get involved with the cover design. It's like, okay, this is the cover design that I want. What do we think about these colors? We look at each other's branding colors. We look at each other's stories, what things. So color psychology is very big with DBI. We make sure that, if we, so for example, with owning our ovaries, sorry, I was just looking at it, it's right here. Let me just grab it. With owning our ovaries, you can see that, this was a beautiful illustration done by Amanda, who is one of the authors within the book. She's also one of my other clients for her own books. But we wanted something that was soft. We wanted something that represented the femininity and the softness, but also the fallopian tubes. And look at that. Look at what that does with it. Okay. And then obviously you've got the backbone of steel, and then you've got the crystal, the gems in there for the heart chakras. But you can see that there's a nod to the suffragettes, and the feminine, the women who have died for us all, for women today to have the freedoms that we have. that were denied to us for so long. But also there's a cosmic feel to it because we are all connected, male or female, we are all connected. The butterfly effect. Those of you who know about that fantastic. Those of you who don't, go research it. So again, looking at this, so it was like Amanda came up with the original drawing. After her and I had a long conversation, we presented it to the group. And again, and it was something that came out, and then we were working with the graphic designer who actually then took Amanda's beautiful illustrations and made them into the cover. So again, looking at the roles in which you're playing, but getting people to be involved in the process, making sure that people know what's happening, dates that you're going to launch on, dates that work for people. Is this going to work for you? Is it not? What kind of marketing assets are we going to be putting out there? Are we going to be putting out controversial content? Which parts of the book? So when we work on an anthology, we share the chapters with each of the people taking part so they know what's going to be going in the book. It might be that one author doesn't want their story next to another story, and then you have to work out those dynamics. You might want to, when people are reading it, they'll tell you about different regional, international variations on acronyms that are used. But also they will then tell you this bit really resonated with me and this is the reason. Then you can actually highlight those and use those in the marketing material. Again, it's about creating the marketing assets as you go, sharing these things with people so that before the book launches, the book does really well. Or that would be the hope, that the book does really well. Again, these are all the things that you can expect, and bring people in and bring them on your journey. This is the true sign of leadership, because an anthology is a great way to elevate your leadership. It's a great way to develop yourself and create a really beautiful community if it works that way. Now, there are some anthologies that we've worked on, where people have come together, done the book, and never spoken to each other since, because it wasn't led properly. And it could be that some people, they were not honest. Again, clarity up front prevents resentment later. They weren't clear with what they were doing. They might be on board with what the book is about to do, but then they leave it up to the person who's curated it. As long as a person who is curating it at the beginning knows that these people are not interested in doing any of the hard work after publication, then that's fine. But if they are, everyone is like, oh yeah, we're really going to make this work. We're really going to make it work. And then they disappear. Really, thanks. That's a bit of a kick in the teeth for the person who really brought you all together, that gave you a platform to actually share your story, and then you just walk away and you don't do anything. So that's not kind. That's very selfish, but a negative selfish. And there is a good and a negative selfish. Go and check out Gary Parsons on Instagram. He wears yellow a lot, and he talks about facial disfigurement. Brilliant guy. But he talks about selfish leadership. So go and check him out. And you will have to expect to go it alone, because once the book is written, people's lives get filled up. Now, if you know this at the beginning, you don't go into it blind. And if I had known how many anthologies I would create and work with others on, and I would see, like, some of the people I've worked on with books, the hurt that they've been through because people have not honored what they said they were going to honor, or people have left it to the curator, or to me, the publisher, and they've not actually continued to step up for the book. Well, that's like abandoning your child. You've created a product, and I see this a lot in the world of publishing. And people come together, oh, I really want to write a book. They come and they write the book, and I want to be part of the book. And then as soon as the book is finished and they've got the title of author, the book's abandoned. There's no sales. And for me, the only books that I actually will negotiate an international book distribution deal with are the people that are promoting their book. If, for example, there's somebody that I work on and I don't see them doing any sales for the book, and I don't see them doing any promotion, I'm not going to spend my time helping them get an international distribution deal, because they're not going to do anything with it. Because even though you have an international distribution deal, you still have to do the publishing. Even if you were published by Penguin and the other big four, Even if you are published by them, you still have to do the groundwork. You still have to promote your book. So to leave it to the curator or just the publisher is it stinks really. I'm going to call a spade a spade. It really does stink. But again, if you're looking through the leadership model, you will be clear about this and you will attract the right people. You might be in a bit of a slump. The story you're talking about, it might be really harsh for some of the writers to write about. And so they need space to breathe after they've written the story. If that is the case, keep checking in, develop your leadership, make sure that the hierarchy and the safe space is there, making sure, again, from the outset, and being as honest as possible with each other. Well, when you did this, or when you backed off and you left it to me, this is what it felt like. Or, you said you were going to do this. It was written in the contract you were going to do this, and you have not done it. So you can put into the contract, what if they don't honor their agreement, what are you going to do? Do you keep the story in the book, but just remove them from the publishing platforms? Really, just keep them. I would just keep them, but just know that that person cannot be trusted to keep their word, and just know that you won't work with them again in the future. Really is as simple as that. People, when people show you who they are, believe them, trust me. And again, making sure that everybody's intentions are absolutely clear. Now, this next bit is all about choosing philanthropy over charity, because as I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of people, they donate to charity. They'll use it to help people in a time of their life that they really need that support. And charities do an incredible, incredible job. We live in such a generous world. And I know that so many people think that the world is really, really bad place. It really isn't. When you consider how many charities are around, have been founded, and the amount of money that they make for the cause that they're fighting for, that shows you just how much the generosity of the human spirit is out there. And it also shows you how crap the governments are, because if the governments actually did their job and did the proper thing with the money that we pay them in taxes, we wouldn't actually need all these charities. I'll leave that one for you. But that's my, some would say my anarchist viewpoint. But again, think about it. If the governments did what they were supposed to do, we wouldn't need all these charities, but we have them. So we can just say, you know what? We're a beautiful race of beings. We have so many charities that are doing so much great work. And when you publish a book, whether it is the Owning Our Ovaries, whether it is the Man Up book for the Tough to Talk, preventing, reducing male suicide and destroying the stigma one story at a time. When these two, like, oh, I just love working on books that help support charities. Now, the Owning Our Ovaries book, that goes to help support endometriosis research. So if you are interested in supporting that, then that's a book for you to buy. Again, it depends on what you're doing. Now, when I say choose philanthropy over charity, it doesn't mean to say that the charities are not doing a great thing. I've just said they're doing an incredible thing. But again, are they looking at developing beyond the give the man a fish? Or are you teaching the men how to fish to provide always? Again, is the project that you're investing in, is it something that has those long-term benefits that are actually building this education, or they're building resilience, or they're healing people? And again, look at how the philanthropy works, because when we do look at philanthropy, it's about a long-term view, whereas a charity is more of a short-term view. And also it's like more of a deeply embedded social impact rather than a shorter period of time. And again, charities are more dependent, whereas philanthropy is more interdependent and independent. So make sure that when you do this, there's some really great books on philanthropy. I don't have any here. They're in my boxes. Yes, I'm still packed, ready to move. Try and get a property in Britain when you've got a dog. But there we go. And making sure that when you write these books and you choose a charity, make sure everyone's on board. Make sure that everybody wants to support that charity or that project, that philanthropic project. Make sure that your team of co-authors all agree and that they're going to do whatever it is that they can to help make those contributions possible. Now, I really wanted to donate lots and lots of money to the Humanitarian Foundation in Costa Rica, which is a project run by a wonderful woman called Gail. And the money from that book, from the Potent Power of Menopause, goes to the women in Costa Rica, these Nicaraguan refugees, to actually help build their own businesses and build their own income. And so for every sale of that book, all the royalties we get go to that charity. Now, I'm waiting to be able to send that money off. And the donations when the books start selling or when the books sell, we send donations, and we have to keep the transactions and the accounting. We have to keep accurate accounts, because if we're saying that we're donating to charity and we don't, we can get done for fraud. We get investigated. So make sure that you get everything clear. Now, it might be that you donate the charities once you get to a certain amount of money. So it might be, so, okay, well, once we've hit £1,000, then we will donate to the charity. Or at the end of each year, we will see how much we've raised, and then we will donate that. It could be that you're selling absolutely loads and you're donating every month. Again, you've got to make sure that the this is all specified within the team, because it's like, okay, if you are doing for a certain target, okay, we're going, once we get to £1,000, then we're going to donate. That's a small enough target for the whole team to work towards. And if you've got 10 people, that's only 100 people, £100 per person. Okay, so that's a nice, easy amount for people to be able to achieve. So make sure that, these are all laid out. It could be put into the contract. It could be put into, continual conversations. If you've got a WhatsApp group or Slack group or whatever, community that you've created, and make sure that there is a joint promotion, because if the charity or the philanthropic project that you're supporting, have they got a copy of your book on their website? Can you put a track back link to on your own website back to theirs and actually expert? Are you doing joint events together? If they've got a fundraiser, are you having a stand there? Are you being invited as a speaker? Are you being invited to be a host of one of their events, or actually come and talk about the book? Again, making sure that it's actually mutually beneficial, because no one likes a one-way relationship. You might as well just be single. And again, how are you going to choose the charity? Now, with the Man Up book, for Tough to Talk, Steve actually curated this book, and Tough to Talk was born out of it. Steve knew he wanted to do this charity. And so this book was designed purely for the Tough to Talk charity. Now, with Owning Our Ovaries, the different stories that came out of it, we then chose, we weren't quite sure whether we were going to support a violence against women project or charity, or whether we were going to do a women's health. So we chose endometriosis for this year, and then next year it might be a violence against women. It might be a women incarcerated. Again, it depends on what we all come up with and how much money we raise for this charity as to what we'll be doing next. Again, making sure that if you do partner with a charity or a philanthropic project, a community project, that you both know what the agreement is, and make sure that you are saying, well, actually, we're only going to support you for a year, or this book is always going to support you. And then make sure that you stay in tune with what the charity or the project are doing, because it might be that their values change, or they might start virtue signaling, or they might not actually be aligned with you moving forward. So it's like, okay, we'll just stick to a year. A year is always a good thing, because you can switch it up. And if you choose to sponsor them again the next year, great. If you choose to sponsor something else, at least you know, and it's something that you and your team need to discuss. Through this, when you work with these projects and these charities, again, it's looking at events that they're, oh, just nearly knocked my water over. It's looking at how you can work with each other long term and increase each other's awareness, especially when I do these books. I look for them to be international books. I look for people who have got very differing views, very different stories. And so you can go through it. So, for example, with the Man Up book, you can get it via toughtotalk.com. You can get it on Amazon. You can also order it through your favorite online store by visiting the Dawn Bates website. Now, when we look at this book, I'm just going through, I absolutely love this book. You know, there are some chapters on grief. So you might look at to partner with an organization that deals with grief, maybe specializing in men's grief, whether that's the grief of a loved one or a child. Um, so that might be so. Then you've got isolation or abuse. Then you've got narcissism, anxiety. And bullying. So they're giving you there lots of different organizations that you can actually work with to actually elevate and actually share the book in different sectors. Like I said, you've got addiction. So maybe you want to go to Alcohol Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous and actually get the book into spaces like that. Again, if someone has been abused, maybe look at, different centers that are actually dealing with that, psychotherapists, and getting them to have the book. Maybe you want to look at, because I know that with Steve and the dark guys at Tough to Talk, they're working with construction companies because there's a high level of male suicides within the construction industry. They're also working with the emergency services. But again, don't restrict yourself. Look at ways in which you can increase the reach. As I've said, charity is short-term, philanthropy is long term, and making sure that you honor your promises. So if you say you're going to support the charity, make sure you do. Make sure that you mention the book as often as you can, maybe have some copies with you. If you're attending an event, make sure you take some with you. Attend events that are actually going to be relevant to the book. And just really get it out there. Make sure that people know what you're about. Like I said, make sure you've got transparency with the financials and the payouts and how often they're going to happen. The targets we've already covered. And again, with the joint effort in creating social impact. These are all really great things. And I'm ahead of myself on the slides. I really am going to need this water and rest my voice after this. Now, I mentioned the people that were really serious about joining your project. And like I said, it can be really disheartening when someone says they're really into helping you create the project and the impact that the book is all about. And then they don't promote the book or they don't talk about the book or put it on their website. They don't write about it. They're almost like ashamed of the book. I've seen that with some people because they realize that with one particular book that I'm thinking of, there was quite a number of people that took part in this book, and they all kind of relied on the person who chose to do the book. Nobody sold it, but then the person who did it, they didn't let people know that they could buy author copies. There was no leadership there. And so it became quite a disheartening project, and people were felt let down. And this came from the fact that this person was only about becoming an author. It's only about the title of becoming an author. It's just a tick list. Now, if that's what you want and that's what you're about, then DBI is not the publishing company for you. We really are not. We're all about social impact. We're all about developing leadership. We're all about educating people so that they can become empowered. So, for example, you might want to publish your first book with us. We will guide you through that whole process. We will educate you on what we're doing, share with what we're doing. So that the next time you publish a book, you can either do a lot of it yourself and then come to us and we'll finish off the final bits, or you might just say, well, actually, now I know what the process is. I'm still going to work with DBI and but we're going to get it done a lot quicker. We're all about the education. We're all about the social impact. So if you're a self-centered author and you're only in it just to get a job title, we are not the publishing company for you. because we go deep. When we look at the books that we're writing, it is about holding space for you. It's about helping you move through it, preparing you for that post publishing anticlimax. We are looking at the, how this not just impacts you as an individual, but your whole family, because your life has now changed. You now have a book out there. How is that going to impact you? So it's about looking at, what has this writing this book or bringing this book to fruition, how has that impacted you? Have you done a lot of healing on the way? Because I guarantee you, if your book is deep enough, you will not be the same person you were when you went into it, and you will have done a lot of healing. You'll have actually got present to a lot of your own ignorances, lot of your own prejudices, and you will actually become a much more awakened, much more compassionate, um, enlightened individual, regardless of what your subject is. And the people that will then go on to read your book, they too will go through a healing journey of some kind. There's healing by osmosis, especially when you're reading books like, Man Up and Owning Our Ovaries. Um, and it's this unexpected healing that some people, they are very confronted by it. There are some people that I've helped write a book and it would never be published because it was never meant to be published. But helping them to write the book has helped them with their healing. Now, imagine you've got 7, 10, 9 individuals that are writing their story and they're healing by osmosis. They're going through that cathartic process of writing down, and you have to hold space for those people. That's where your leadership really comes into its own. But do not be disillusioned. Just because you've helped them heal does not mean they're going to stick around and help promote the book. They won't. A lot of them won't. And there are reasons for that, because it might be that what they have learned about themselves or what they have healed about themselves mean they have to step away because they cannot be connected to the book because it's too triggering. That's a period of their life they want to put in the past. It's done. And that's okay. That's more than okay. That's their journey. Let them have it. Just because you publish the book with their story in it and they agree to be part of it does not mean to say they will stick around. It really, really doesn't. They probably don't want to know that the book is in his existence. Maybe they'll come back in 5 years' time. Maybe they'll come back in 10 years' time. Maybe once their journey and they've recalibrated, maybe that's when they'll come back. But you've got to let them have their time. Again, are you binded by the book but not friends? Again, are you just professionals that have just come together to do this for a conference, for a healing process, for a joint podcast, whether you're creating an event for a charity, what have you, whatever the reason you've come together for this book, are you just professionals that have come together to share? Are you friends that are putting together a book? Are you professionals and colleagues that come together and become friends? Again, know what is happening and be open to everything and nothing. Like they say in the what's that film? Did you hear about the Morgans? The dude with the big mustache, when he says to Sarah Jessica Parker and Hugh Grant, don't expect anything, but expect everything. There's a brilliant line, and that is exactly it. Expect everything of each other so that you can hold each other up and make each other rise and, support them on the journey for rising. But don't expect anything, because they might not rise. They may not want to be part of it. You've just got to accept or as Mel Robbins says, let them. And again, making sure that the measures that you're putting in place, it's achievable for everybody on the team, because it might be that you have someone who's a really, really successful business person, really, really great. They've got a massive audience. And then you've got somebody who doesn't have a business, that doesn't have any social media following. They're not interested in it. Again, what are the measures? How successful? If you then say to someone, right, okay, I expect £100 worth of sales from each of you, so we can donate £1,000 every year to a charity, that might really intimidate somebody. Somebody that has been rejected by one of their main caregivers as a child will not really be open to sales most of the time. This is one of the reasons why you've got some people who are not very good at sales. But then the flip side is someone who was rejected as a child was like, you know what, I'm going to do it by myself and I'm going to show you all. And they're incredible salespeople. So know who they are, what they're about, and what they can bring so that when you set the targets, they are realistic for everybody. Step 7, we are getting to the end of it. I know I'm running through this at a rate of knots, and rate of knots, we're going sailing. We're not sailing this weekend, but we will be the following week. Yes. Knots, I'm a sailor. Okay, so the royalties and the agreements, the transparency and the impact we've covered. So make sure that you get those in place. The anthologies develop the leaders and the followers. Know who your leaders are and know who the followers are and know who the hangers on are. That's always a good thing to do. Contracts can only go so far. That is why it's important for you to create a really open and supportive community. The contracts are a first post, and like I say, they build the foundations. Everything else of who you are, how you lead, how you support, and how you encourage. That's going to be the biggest thing about working on an anthology, because you really get to, whether you are politically aligned, ideas are aligned, or you've come together for a reason. Trust that. Your values on this particular subject, they're aligned. Your ideas might be vastly different and vastly polarizing, but you've all come together to achieve something. So just focus on that. Like I've said, not everyone will care as much as you. And when you're talking to people, is it your book or is it our book or their book? Are you writing the book for Tough to Talk? Because their book, all the gentlemen who took part in this book, it is their book. But it also is Tough to Talk's book. It's also Steve's book. It's also my book. This is the first in the Man Up series that I created when I sailed across the Atlantic. Just so happens that Steve had a very similar idea to me, completely separate. And we came together after he saw one of my posts and he goes, I've had the same, that's a very similar idea. Do you want to team up? And I'm like, yeah, let's team up. And this is what came out of it. Again, it's like, whose book is it? When you're working together, it's our book. But the moment a book is published, whether it's a solo book, whether it is an anthology, it's no longer yours. It's the reader's. Because even though this book is the same book for every person, the experience that this gives every reader is going to be so vastly different. There are thousands of versions of this book in people's hands because there are thousands of people with this book. So it's not your book. It's their book. Right? Okay. So again, that brings it back to the book is not about the writers. Steve, the guys in this book, they shared their story with Steve, who interviewed them. I then watched the interviews, transcribed them, put it together in a book. So it's not about any of us. It's about the people who read it and the healing journey they go on and the understanding that they get. Whether it's a woman reading it about her male colleagues, her son, her husband, her father, or her brother, or her friend, or whether it's about the men on their own journey, or wanting to support men, or coaches, or team leaders that are reading this book. It really does change the way people see men in today's world. So again, what is the impact? Saving lives, raising awareness, building compassion, and creating harmony bit by bit. So if you haven't read Tough to Man Up, go and get it. And obviously send a review. And remember, your disclaimers are absolutely vital. When you are doing anthologies, most of them will be non-fiction unless you're creating a collection of short stories and or poetry. So when you're putting an anthology together, when people are graciously sharing their story with you, make sure that you have the appropriate disclaimers to hand. If you need them, please let us know. And if you want us to publish, because we make sure that all the disclaimers are in the front of the book. Like to protect our authors, we like to protect ourselves and our editors. And the disclaimers offer that little bit of safety and that reassurance that your writers need and your co-authors need. And it is all about making sure that you all feel safe and protected and empowered so that you can go out there into the world and actually create a lot of good. Anthologies are really, really powerful. When they're done properly, when they're done properly. And if you've got a story or you've got an idea for an anthology, do let us know. Contact us through the website on the contact form, and we'll be more than happy to discuss the anthology with you. But I hope that you found this series really, really useful. Thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate you. And, if you know someone who's writing an anthology, share it with them. And do go and visit dawnbates.com where you'll find out all about the books and all about the services that we offer. Thank you so very much. You take care. Ciao for now.